Hello, and welcome to the Transforming Learning with Qridi presentation. My name is Christine Orcas-Lung, and I'll be guiding you through the decision-making processes that a school might take when choosing a new digital platform for learning. We call this a school's journey, and I'm glad you're with us today. Let's get started. Planning is part of an education leader's role, and we have some suggested steps for you to take as you evaluate the needs of your community and put a plan in place to implement a new digital platform for learning in your context. The first stage of the process is to listen. We're going to get input from all of the stakeholders in the community to find out what their needs are, what their wishes are, and what they believe would be most supportive in helping to improve student learning. While we're listening, we want to watch out for certain indicators of need by listening in for higher stress levels, perhaps more superficial reflection. In a bigger sense, we might be finding out that decisions are being made without evidence to support them, and keeping notes of what we're noticing and how they might help us going forward is really important at this stage. The next stage is to assess our needs more specifically. We have three main areas we'll be looking at. Which areas of student learning need to improve, can improve? What current infrastructure do we have, and what are we able to perhaps include to enhance that? And also gauging the capacity of the community for the changes that we are anticipating bringing in. There's a long list of questions here that if you take the time, feel free to print this out, take the time to go through these and discuss them in your teams quite thoroughly, because I believe they would give you a real indication and help you at this stage to ensure that the decision making process is going to be an effective one in your setting. At the left, we have the goals. These come from the ISTES student standards for what we are aiming for, apart from improved student learning, which is always our goal, to ensure that our students have these capacities to be empowered and digital citizenship as part of their learning, making sure that they are creative and computational thinkers and innovative designers and global collaborators. And these are the higher aims that we are going for when we are bringing in digital tools to support learning. So these things together will help you to really assess concretely, perhaps helping you create a set of criteria of what it is that you will be looking for as you go forward. The biggest section of the presentation is the planning phase. So we have several slides to support with this. It's recommended to take at least about 6 months of preparation as you work toward bringing in a new digital portfolio for your students, or a platform for your teachers for planning. And to be very, very clear about the criteria that you've set from your assessment stage and the objectives that you are aiming to achieve. Putting in measures of success is really important at the start. That helps to bring everybody along through the process, and to include stopping points within the process to make sure that you are assessing how well things are going. We'll look at the next stages for more detail on the planning. Let's take a look at the next slide. So in the first stages of planning, we have a clear objective. We're taking an example here of increasing student agency. The graph is here to show that as much as it feels like we want to bring something in and we know that we need to support learning in our context, we know that it's just a little bit too much sometimes to think about bringing something new in at this moment, because we're already feeling a little bit overwhelmed. This is often the case in busy, active schools. One of the ways to address this is something I call chunking things out over time. So if we take 4 semesters, for example, or 6 semesters even, and you have a bigger goal, a change you want to achieve, we can clearly map out that, yes, the time investment in the beginning is there. We can recognize that we're going to need to take teachers' time and the community's time to learn something new. And yet, we can see that that time investment decreases over the time of our plan, and that finally we start to see our aim coming through. The time investment is going to always be there, hopefully over not too long of a time, reduced, and then we've achieved the aim that we set out to do, and that's also going to be there over time in a bigger amount that we can measure and show, and that will continue to increase as we go forward. Here we see some screenshots of what's available in Qridi Core to support increased student agency, for example. We've got the student's digital portfolio on the left, and we've got some sample views of data that the students see of their self-assessment in comparison to their teacher assessments in key areas. And this is an example of how we have built a system to support increased student agency that is increased motivation and also choice aspects that they have, and also featuring the ATL skills in this example because we believe that they are a connector across the subjects and very important for 21st century learning. So when you're choosing a system, you want to make sure that it helps you to achieve the specific aims that you have set out to do. We have one more example to look at. Let's move forward. In this example, we're considering a school that might want to improve its reporting procedures. This is an area that many schools look at, and it's always good to review our reporting procedures to make sure that they are relevant and also manageable. And so if you're spending a lot of time twice a year where you're trying to send quite thorough semester reports to your parents, and perhaps having student-led conferences or three-way conferences, that's a great thing. That's a typical thing to have in a school. But it could be that you're trying to think about how can we provide more authentic, more ongoing information to our parents and to keep them more involved in the learning conversation throughout the semester as well. Also, the time that we're taking to write big, long semester reports sometimes isn't really time well invested if these reports are not being used by the next year's teacher, if they're not really being used by the students to help them set their goals. It's really important to think about the time investment versus the value that we're getting out of it. So let's say we want to use a digital system to improve our reporting procedures and make them a little bit more organic and ongoing. You're going to need to invest the time again in the beginning to get to know a new system, to train people, to set those goals, to put those measures in place. But over time, the time investment will decrease. And you can clearly map out in 3, 4, 5, 6 semesters perhaps where you will ultimately be when you implement this change and how that will actually feel and how you will be closer to reaching the goals that you value in your program. In a learning platform like Qridi Core, you can see that there are many data views available to the students themselves, as we've seen, and the parents get to see those as well in their interface. And also for teachers to see individual students' progress over time, cohort progress, and school leaders can see multiple cohorts together. And we can toggle in our data dashboard to be able to see the different elements of the program. So say we're looking at the values and dispositions like the learner profile in the IB program, or we want to look at subject growth, or we want to look at the ATL skills or categories and clusters. We can drill down into these and see quite a lot of detail about the learning. And this is a step toward replacing some of the work that we're doing right now and letting the digital tools support us to save a bit of time and also to help us make those data-informed decisions that we need to make. So once you've set your goals and aims, then you need to come up with a set of criteria so that you can compare the digital tools that are available to you. So you want to make sure that what you choose is relevant and it really matches your curriculum program. And you'll want probably to have some level of customization because straight out of the box, the platforms might not be exactly right for you. You want to make sure that the interaction with the tool itself is easy to use and accessible for all of your community members. You want to make sure the navigation is friendly and adaptable, and also, of course, that it meets digital safety requirements, and that customer support is there, and that the team behind the product is there to support you with their expertise and knowledge. The last stage of the planning phase is to think about the external and internal barriers that might exist in your context. It's always good to be informed ahead of time and to think about which ones of those you might be able to mitigate straight off the bat, which ones will require work over time, and which of the digital platforms that you are considering will best help you to meet those needs. So there's quite a nice list here for you to go through and discuss with your teams. I would like to point out that the research shows that as much as these barriers are common and found in most settings, it's really important not to think that you need to tick all of these off and address them before you get going. So what you want to be able to do is be aware of them. This is part of your planning phase. What would we be able to do? But go ahead and get started and make sure that you've built in some flexibility and that people are building up their confidence so that when they are faced with a barrier, that they have some tools or they have some venues to go to for support so that they feel confident going forward. So in the second to last part of our development phase, we want to engage all of the community members. So we're going to be sharing that plan. We're going to create, hopefully co-create a detailed rollout plan with times and dates and venues for feedback built in. We want to make sure that everybody is aware and can articulate themselves the clear benefits of the change that we're making. That's the why, that we don't want to implement a change if people are not able to clearly understand why we're doing that, because there is a time investment at the start and change can make people feel uncomfortable. So let's be confident in sharing exactly why we're doing this. Involving everybody and making sure that we're collecting feedback in objective ways as well as at scale. You want to put those measures in place and be monitoring them quite carefully through the process to help people understand how important this change is and how important the improved student learning is as one of your major goals. The last stage of the process is implementation. Now, this will look different in every setting, but I've put a list together here to help discussions in your school around the idea of why we are even heading in a digital direction with our students and what digital transformation is. I've included the SAMR model, which you might have heard of, that moves from substituting what we're already doing without technology, using technology, all the way into really being able to think in different ways because we have the technology there. So use this as a guide for you as you are making your decisions and as you are putting some changes in place in your setting. And if you need any support, you can reach out to the Qridi core team, and I'm also available to help in any way and look forward to hearing from you if you're interested to find out more. Thank you.